Hysteria.
Welcome back to Dad Bod History. I'm Eric. We've got Jake. We've got Cameron. Please hit like, subscribe, put a comment down below, especially after this episode. We want to hear who your 5 are. We'll talk about that in a moment. What is happening before we get into our topic tonight?
Well, I'd like to tell you something that happened to me today. And so my mother-in-law sent me a lovely care package for my birthday. It came a couple weeks late, which is par for the course with my wife's family and tardiness and punctuality. So anyway, part of the birthday gift was a pocket knife, and I'm going to show it here. You can see it. Got a lovely bear and an American eagle flying over the bear, and
Is Trump on the other side?
Yeah, he's got his shirt ripped open and a big S on his chest. Yeah, it's awesome. It's totally great. So anyway, I've been carrying it to me for work, just in case I get into a knife fight on the way to work. But so today we were taking some stuff on the wall that had been stapled up on the wall, and I'm like, I know what I can do. I can use my knife to plug the staples out. And so literally the third staple, I go ahead and stab myself in the finger with my pocket knife. And I did it, and I watched, and I'm like, is it going to bleed? Is it going to bleed? And it just started pouring out. And so I went to the bathroom and tried to take care of it without my wife noticing, because
I do this exact thing happened to me when I was like 9 years old. So
I know. No, I still have that.
Here.
I still have that childlike mentality when it comes to I have a boo-boo. I need to go take care of it and not get in trouble. So I did that, and then I went and fessed up to her later. I'm like, yeah, I already stabbed myself. And she goes, are you serious? I'm like, sorry. So anyway, that was my big story for the day, is that I stabbed myself with my new toy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a really good fall break. We're just coming off a fall break, so the kids had 9 consecutive days off, and that was more for mom and dad than it was for the kids. With online learning, it's rough.
Yeah.
So, in Arizona, the high temperatures have dipped into the mid-90s, so took the kids swimming, and you would have thought that, it was winter in Wisconsin, how they reacted. So it was fun, but definitely a little chilly.
Yeah, our kids are the same way. We had a little inflatable pool, and we finally got rid of it last week because the kids were playing in it, and it was just too cold at 95 degrees for them to deal with. So like, well, I guess we're done with this for the year. So
I took ours down weeks ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because it finally dipped under 100. I'm like, this thing is... ours is in the shade for part of the time because it's an above ground pool. It's like an 18-foot pool, but it's in the shade for about half the day. We did that so we didn't have to put sunscreen on them constantly, but it also keeps it from warming up. So just like, yep, we're done. You guys get in. You're done in 5 minutes. It's not worth it. It's coming down.
Yeah. Well, then yours is it's quite large, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's like
it's a large above
inches
ground,
tall and 18 feet wide. It's nice. It's a pain to put up. It's a pain to take down, but we had it up for like 5 months. So
okay,
you got your money's worth. Dead spot.
Yeah, definitely worth the money.
Yeah. So you ready to get into this?
I'm so excited right now.
Okay.
I have been thinking about this all day long.
I have not.
Oh, do you have something else to say?
But yeah, we went not camping. We went cabining this weekend, right? We rented a cabin at a campsite. Spent a couple nights there. It's a ton of fun. And what I didn't realize is how long a Saturday can be if you can't or you choose not to turn on the TV. And it's just like, there's going to be 3 meals, and we're going to fill the time with something in between, but we don't know what. We went on like 4 hikes in a day. 2 after breakfast before lunch, 2 after lunch before dinner. It was just kind of a wild. Then we came back today. We were back here by noon today, And it just like, it felt like we were gone for 4 days, but we were really gone for like less than 48 hours. Um, they want to go back. They want to camp again. It was a ton of fun. It was so
That's
beautiful.
cool.
It was like 70 degrees of a high. But then
Where was it?
it was a place called Santa Margarita, which is it's closer to the coast than we are, but it's in this valley, a lot of ranches. But it, I mean,
Not
it was
Orange
gorgeous.
County, Santa Margarita.
No, this was Slow County. So it was gorgeous. Like we're in this valley. It's kind of very similar to high desert in Arizona. A lot of cattle, a lot of deer that we saw. So the kids had a blast. There was all these animals around all the time. So then we get home, and a couple weeks ago, my wife's a planner in some respects.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of September, she's like, we need to get Halloween candy now. I'm like, it's not toilet paper in pandemic world, right? Like,
Wow.
but anyways, I'm like, fine. I got 2 big bags of candy. They sat on the counter for 2 weeks. I'm staring at them the whole time. Tonight, after dinner, she breaks a bag open. So like, we'll give the kids a treat. I'm like, great. So here we go. I've been staring at these bags every day for 2 weeks, knowing that if I break the bag, she's gonna, now the bag's open.
Yeah, there's no rules now.
Take them to work. Take them to work. They'll be gone in a day.
Yep.
Depending on how long this podcast is tonight, they're big bags too. So I'm sorry, honey. So sorry.
That's okay. You've earned it. What do you got there?
Oh, it's a Kit Kat.
Okay.
Some
Oh,
clever sound
thank you for
editing.
opening it up right in front of the microphone. That's beautiful. All right. Well, while you break off a piece of that Kit Kat, you mind if I get into what we're
Break
doing
me
tonight?
off a piece of that. Oh, I can't remember what it is.
Fancy feast.
Nailed it. All right. So we're gonna do and I don't know what we'll call the episode, but for lack of a better term, it's a historical bar fight. And so there's this thing that I've long held firm as a belief of mine, and it's a credo, in fact, I would say, and that is everybody's got to have a 5, and what your 5 is the 5 people that you would have with you if you ever got into a bar fight. So who are the 5 guys or gals that you could rely on to back you up in a bar fight? And why would you pick those 5? So my 5, as it so happens, ended up being my groomsmen in my wedding. And so that includes, obviously, you, Eric, you, Cameron, my buddy Josh, and then my 2 friends from high school, Tyler and John. And they all different sets of skills and different reasons.
I want to clarify something here. I remember very early on when I was told about this 5 phenomenon that I wasn't in it for a long time.
Yeah.
And for good reason. But I think it was given to me as like a groomsman gift.
Yes, that was your groomsman. I couldn't afford anything material, so that's why you got to be in the 5.
I actually had to earn my right to be in the 5, but
yes, you did.
Still one of the biggest honors of my life.
What was your feat?
So my feat, it was a feat of strength, of course.
Yes.
So I had to bench press my weight. And, given that I'm almost 7 feet tall, you can pretty much double the number that I came up with. Carry the one.
Yeah, no, the transitive property.
North of 400 pounds that I can bench.
Yeah.
Using the distributive property.
Yeah, and when you convert to metric, it's astronomical. So
yeah. I mean, it's science.
But you did it, and that's what matters. Is you did it.
None of what you said is in math. So none of what you just said is in math.
Stop focusing on details here. Okay. So the point is, everybody needs a 5. And so my 5, and it's changed over the years. It's not set in stone. People go up or down within the 5. People can fall out of the 5 or be brought up into the 5, depending. Yeah, you know who you're talking about. So, yeah. So and
made it.
and that's why you're in my 5, because you're beautiful
that.
voice.
That was my feet.
Yeah.
Just singing with a falsetto.
Yep. So, when we were thinking about the topic for this episode, it just popped in my head. I'm like, well, if I had a historical 5, who would be the 5 people I would want to back me up in a bar fight? And I know you're opening up another candy. I can tell. Stop it. I'm going to tell Amy. That's kind of how we got into this topic. And so the rules for this episode are, this is a bar fight. So this isn't how, a certain warrior would do in battle, in an army or anything like that, or how great of a swordsman they were or archer. This is a bar fight. So who would you want in a bar fight with you? Weapons. The only weapons allowed are those that would be handy at a bar. So bottles, chairs, beer nuts, those sorts of things.
Big screen TVs.
The TV. Yeah, if you want to pull that off the wall. They have to be real, so you can't have mythological characters. You can't have Hercules or Beowulf or something like that. They've got to be historically verified. They can't be alive, so that they can't be people that are currently living today. And then who you pick from, and this is a lot more open. Generally, you want to keep it with like world leaders, generals, famous warriors. Eric, I think you brought up, what about like inventors or philosophers? So if you want to have
the word warrior poets.
Warrior poets, that's what he said. Yeah.
I want one of those
so if you have any,
just sitting there staring at everyone saying, none of this matters.
Yeah. So if you want to have one of those, that's fine with me. And then you can have kind of a wild card, just any one random historical person that you want to throw in if you need to. Those are the rules. And with that, who wants to go first? Who wants to delve into who their 5 is, how they built their team? And
I'm going to go first because
why?
I think I totally missed the mark with all this. But
I doubt it. I bet you did great.
I think in our chatting, I had a lot of questions. Can
did.
they bring weapons? No. What? They're at a bar. What if it's a medieval themed bar and there's halberds and staves on the wall? No. Okay. Yes. So, I'm trying to find.
Yeah. So the setup. What was the setup? Was that it's a sports bar on football Sunday, and it's a rivalry game, and things get a little out of hand. So
okay. So I know Jake had kind of his way of doing it. Cameron had his. Mine, I'm about diversity. I'm about inclusiveness.
If there's one thing I know about you, it's that you love diversity and inclusiveness.
So I just said, all right, I'm going to set these up by eras, right? So I have somebody representing the ancient world, the classical world, the medieval world, and the modern world. And then I have a 5th person who fits. So I'll just start with the ancient world. I kind of went and I had a few in mind. The one person that came to mind initially, I had to take off the table. Not Goliath, not Shamgar, not Samson. I'm going with Ehud. Ehud's going to be my 5. So Ehud is a biblical judge of ancient Israel, and he's the judge who slays the Moabite king. What's his name?
Eglon.
And so he does it kind of through deception, right? He conceals his sword that he made, right? He made this double-edged sword that's meant for piercing. And since he's left-handed, he put it on his right thigh. So nobody checked for it, right? Security has changed over the years. But he ends up going up to King Eglon, and he's like, yeah, I have a message for you from God, and then shoves the sword into Eglon, up to the hilt into his stomach. Apparently the king was really fat. So
the Bible is very clear on that. King Eglon was a very fat man. That's literally the verse.
Yeah. So I think what's great about Ehud's story is first of all, he has this sleight of hand. So he gets in because he's going to manage to sneak a weapon into the bar. So, sorry, I break one of the rules right off the bat. But then he also says, hey, I've got a message from you. from God. And he shoves that sword all the way up to the hilt, and then he leaves, and he sneaks out. So I just think that kind of...
And I think he says, like, hey, don't disturb the king. He's sleeping or something like that.
He's going to the bathroom. Yeah. He'll be a while. And the guards come in. Anyways, basically, he slays King Eglon, and then there's like 80 years of peace after that. So I think Ehud is a good fit. Half the judges are great in a bar fight, I think. Shamgar would have been great because he would have picked up whatever's around him and killed 600 people. But Ehud gets it. I like the sleight of hand. I like the conceal and carry. So.
I like it. Well, I've always liked Ehud.
Choice.
He's always been my favorite judge. And I love that you're going biblical right out of the gate.
Well,
Old Testament biblical. That's good.
Initially, I had Goliath. And I know he's not a fan favorite because he's what I wish the Lakers were in that they lost to, the underdog.
David Miami Heat.
But I don't know. I don't really want Goliath on my team. So, anyways, so moving on to the classical world, I really struggled with finding leaders. I wanted people who really fought. So I came across this guy. Very little is known of him. His name is Flamma the Syrian, and he is a gladiator. Was a gladiator. So very little is known about him. There's some kind of conjecture that maybe he was a Jewish slave who was sold into gladiatorhood because he's from the area of Syria. He would have been in the 2nd century AD, so that would have been kind of around the time of some Jewish revolts. So it's very possible he could have been captured during that time as a young man and brought into the gladiator fold. But here's why I go with Flamma. He only lived 30 years. He fought 34 fights. He won 21 of them, drew 9 of them, and kind of won a reprieve, which means he lost, but they let him live 4 times. And then, of course, he's of Syrian extraction. And that's from, I guess, the tombstone that existed for him at one time. But he was a secutor. So I guess there's different classes of gladiators. It's something I want to look into a little bit more. Secutors carry a heavy shield, sword, the gladius or dagger. And their specialty is fighting the retiarius, which are the gladiators that carry the trident and the net, right? Mm-hmm. So there's 8 different classes. But here's why I like him for one of my 5. He was awarded the rudius, which is a wooden baton that's awarded to gladiators when they've done really, really well. And when you're awarded the rudius, you're given your retirement and freedom. He was given that 4 times. And 4 times he said, no, I want to keep fighting. So a guy like that, he's the one who probably starts the fight, honestly. So I want him in there as well. Preferably with the shield and gladius.
You need a guy like that on your team always he likes the contact, likes mixing it up. There's certain guys that are good at fighting. There's others that enjoy fighting.
I think that's kind of a theme in my 5. So I've got Ehud and Flamma the Syrian. My next one comes from the medieval world, and it comes from Japan. And this is Miyamoto Musashi. And Miyamoto Musashi was a Japanese swordsman, philosopher, strategist, writer, and a Ronin, right? He, very much like Ehud, used a double-edged sword. So, much like many, like samurai would use a katana, right? Katana. That's a single-edged sword. He used a double-edged sword. He fought 61 duels and won them all. And the next best, I forget the guy's name, had 33. So he lived in the 16th, 17th century. So, and they also consider him a sword saint in Japan. His first duel was at 13 years old. So the person that comes to mind is, if you've seen the movie First Knight with Richard Gere, where he is Lancelot, and Lancelot goes around from village to village just fighting people with a wooden sword or whatever sword he has just for money. That's kind of like Miyamoto or Musashi. Just kind of travels around challenging people to duels and defeating them. He also wrote 2 books, The Book of 5 Rings, and in that he says, so this is my one philosopher of the group. There are 5 ways men pass through life: as gentlemen, warriors, farmers, artisans, or merchants. And then his other book, which might not help me in a bar fight, is The Path of Aloneness. So he needs to fight in a group, so he might not be the best pick. But there's my medieval pick.
I like that one.
Now, he won't have a sword, but again, he's a guy who seeks out the challenge.
Yeah.
So I didn't...
Maybe get one of those little cocktail skewers. Fight with that.
Probably, as long as it's got 2 edges to it. The thing I
totally.
found is initially I was kind of searching for who are some people with some like tempers, like who would just like go on a rage. And then I realized the people I'm picking are all people who would seek the fight for the challenge, not just end up in it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Musashi. And then I have 2 from the modern world.
Okay.
My first is Tank Man.
Tank Man.
You might remember him from such films as Tiananmen Square in 1989 when he stood in front of a column of tanks. And the guy who's just walking across the street and sees a tank and puts 2 and 2 together knowing that there's a protest and decides to stand in front of them, that's who you want. Like, I have no idea what the guy's skills were. There's stories that
I like this because...
in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like, we don't officially know he's dead, but he almost certainly is dead.
Yeah. Could have been 2 weeks. Could have been 2 months.
Yeah.
He could still be alive if you believe the Chinese authorities. And LeBron does. So Tank Man could very well still be alive, but I doubt it. But just the attitude. Listen, I know there's skills involved, and I'm sure you two are going to bring a lot of the stats on the skills. This guy's attitude, I want him on my team.
Yeah. He's going to go down swinging. No matter
what. He wouldn't swing at all. He would just be like, come at me, bro, and then just stand there and take it while Eric's ninja guy is sneaking up behind him.
Listen,
with
that guy as a human shield.
If he's the guy that stands there with 2 bags of groceries in his hands and says, hit me, and you're the guy that hits him, the whole bar turns on you. So he's a great... He has that...
Although what injustice he's fighting in that bar, I don't know. But he's going to be a heck of a distraction for your gladiator to go grab a fork and start swinging that around with his plate. So I think it's a great plan. I like it. I think your tactics are coming in here.
So, my last pick, another modern world pick. I did break another rule here. You gotta have somebody that can defeat anything, including the coronavirus. Why not Donald Trump?
Oh my God!
No, not him. Not him. I just wanted the reaction.
He's well, who knows? You made the rule that they had to be dead, and apparently he's invincible. So, and he's mythological.
Yeah. And he brings his immune system, which is apparently its own weapon. So he's just
that's unfair. It's not fair. No, you can't have the last son of Krypton in a bar fight.
So I'm pulling him off.
Okay.
I've got Teddy. How could you turn down Teddy?
Teddy.
Teddy's in there. Rough
I knew somebody was going to pick Teddy.
I had to.
Yeah, the mustache alone is gives you so much street cred in a fight. Nobody's going to mess with a mustache like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and the great thing about Teddy, and we've talked about this when we refaced the currency, is during a campaign speech in Milwaukee, he was shot in the chest.
Yeah.
And he continued to give the speech for 90 minutes thereafter.
So I assume this bar
So that's
is
exactly
in
the kind of guy you want. Oh, yeah, definitely.
This is a Milwaukee bar. So listen, Milwaukee can't touch him.
Yeah, no, he's New York, that's a good point. I love it. Teddy's a great one to have.
So there you go. Ehud, Flamma, Musashi, Tank Man, and Teddy.
Honestly, Teddy is the only one that I knew was going to get picked tonight. The other 4, I had no idea, but they're all really good picks.
Nobody had Tank Man?
No. Since we don't know his name, no, nobody had Tank Man.
Yeah, definitely filled out the wild card slot there pretty well, Eric.
Yeah, that was a good one. All right. Cameron, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next.
All right.
So mine are, with the exception of one, all these are from recent history.
Okay.
So I've got two from the 19th century.
Thought he was
One
going to
from
say
the
from like the
18th
Eastern
century.
Conference and one from the Western Conference.
No, we'll get to that in just a minute.
Oscar Robertson.
Don't worry. We've got a 5th century guy and a 20th century guy. So kind of spread out throughout the eras. But when we were sitting down on our text strand and talking about this, okay, rules and how are we going to set up our team, I set mine up like a basketball team. Everybody's got a role on this team.
Everyone gets
I
to
need a
play.
good point guard. I need a good defensive player. And I think these guys fit together really well.
Okay.
On paper.
Well, we'll see.
So it all looks good on paper, right?
All of this blends together with great leadership.
Did it fit
Anybody
in your
in the
salary
military? I fit under the salary cap, yes.
Good.
Because I've got some dark horses here. These are not all,
third round
franchise
picks.
They're not all blue chips.
Yeah, I've got my 3-point specialist. I've got my lockdown defender. This is the 86 Celtics right here. So just buckle your seatbelts.
86 Celtics. All right, let's do
I'll
it.
have to look them up.
So first guy, anybody associated with the military and will tell you the importance of leadership.
You can't have Coach Wooden.
Maybe you've heard of him, General George S. Patton.
Oh my gosh.
Knew it.
So literally, this guy's nickname was Old Blood and Guts. Okay? That speaks volumes right off the bat. Okay? He was an Olympic pentathlete, which I didn't realize. But definitely a guy.
Pentathlete or pentathlete?
Are you being
knows.
serious? I've
I have
never
no
heard
idea.
it. It's a pentathlete.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't ask me any of those sports in there, but he was in the 1912 Olympics.
The pentathlon?
But he's dangerous. He didn't lead from the back. He was the front runner. All his guys loved him. He really rough language, and he probably could have ascended higher. He's a 4-star general. Could have probably gone more the route of Eisenhower had he been a little less crass. But when he got in front of his guys, he led the way, and everybody loved him, perhaps because of his delivery. So, in a rivalry game on a playoff Sunday, things are going to get mouthy before the battle. Before things go down, things are going to get mouthy. You're going to need to have a guy that can rally.
So he's the Ed Orgeron of U.S. generals, is what you're saying.
Well said.
Okay.
Well
I like
said.
it.
Exactly. Yeah, just a tough guy, old school badass.
Okay, so Here it is. Fencing, swimming, riding, shooting, and running. So I'm guessing
all those are
he
applicable.
Did all of those in World War II. Maybe
Yeah.
not swimming. Maybe not fencing. But who knows? Interesting.
Yeah,
But all around good athlete.
for sure. And a badass on top of that. So that's where leadership comes in. That's my all-star point guard. Okay.
I hope there isn't a guy in the bar named Irwin, because Patton is going to lose his mind.
Or Bernard.
Yeah.
Bernard will probably drive him more crazy than Irwin will.
Yeah.
So
right.
my second guy, this is going to come down to, a boxing match. There's not that many weapons in the bar. You can only pick up so many glasses so many times. I'm going to get a bare-knuckle boxer on my team. Why not get John L. Sullivan, greatest bare-knuckle boxer alive? Let me hit you with a stat right here. In 1883, between 1883 and 1884, he had 195 fights across the country. He rode a train from Boston all the way around the country. 195 fights in 136 different cities in only 238 days.
So he had days off.
Yeah. Yeah, they did load management back then. He was fine.
Yeah, Floyd Mayweather fights, once every 18 months. This guy is throwing down, every day, just about, for, better part of a year. Again, just the fight's going to come down to bare knuckle fight. At the end of the day, that's what I want. I don't want some guy that's going to dance around the ring that's going to wear 16-ounce gloves. I want him to be able to punch you in the mouth.
Well, and what's funny about that is I've read some articles about those bare knuckle boxing days, and a round lasted until you knocked somebody onto their knees. That's how the round ended. There was no time limit. It was like until you knocked them down onto their knees or onto their back, and then the round would stop, and then you would do a new round. And that's how the fight went on. It was just, all right, you knocked him down. Next one, keep going.
And doing the research on him, I saw a photo of him early in his career, and then 10 years later, it was a mess. The guy, he'd gone through a lot, and he died at age 57 or 59, something like that. So probably took his share of punches too.
Oh yeah, he took some damage.
Yeah.
Another great mustache though. Good,
right?
Good work on the mustache.
What's our limit on mustaches in our team?
Never. There's never a limit on mustaches.
Okay.
There is a limit on goatees. 0. Okay.
Good one. Okay. For more my distant, ancient past, I chose Attila the Hun. So, historical figure, just an absolute marauder of that time.
Is he your center?
From the... I would call him a center, yeah. Yeah.
Nobody's going to want to get in the post with that.
Just pass him the ball and he slaughters 5,000 people.
Yeah.
It's just like Shaquille swinging his elbow. And there goes a city.
Exactly. All the best stories about Shaq, I don't care how many points Shaq averaged. I don't care. I want to know how many backboards he broke. I want to know, I want to know the anecdotal stories. So Attila the Hun, 2 great things. He started in Central Asia, like I said, and he just went west toward Rome. And he just killed and slaughtered and everything between Central Asia and Rome. And when he got into the country of Italy, there's a story about the Pope promising, the Pope sent one of his, communicators, diplomats, whatever you want to call it, ahead to Attila and said, if you leave Rome in peace. Yeah, he sent his Kaylee McEnany over.
The Pope has never lied. He's been totally upfront with you, Attila.
And he made a deal. He said, if you leave Rome in peace, you will receive a holy crown from the Pope. So he's trying to bribe him. This is the Roman Empire, be it after its height, but it was still the Roman Empire. And the Pope was scared enough at that time to try to negotiate with this man. There was a quote about him that goes like this. He was a man born into the world to shake the nations, the scourge of all the lands, who in some way terrified all mankind by the dreadful rumors noised abroad concerning him. He was haughty in his talk, rolling his eyes hither and thither, so that the power of his proud spirit appeared in the movement of his body. He was indeed a lover of war. So, pretty good one.
So, Jake, if you have the Pope on your team, you're out of luck because Attila beats Pope.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah, so I need to make some changes real quick.
But ironically, before he got to Rome...
Yeah.
No. Before he got to Rome, he died while celebrating, his marriage to his however many wife of an esophageal rupture. So, he's a hard partier, too.
Yeah.
That just sounds like bad acid reflux, right?
Work hard, play hard. He's the kind of guy, he's going to win the bar fight, and then he's going to go pass out in the bathroom, and hit his head on the toilet or something. So it's
Did
going
he-
to be rough. But
Did he win the fight or not, though?
he won the
You know?
fight.
Won the fight.
Exactly.
Undefeated. So,
But died of
Exactly.
heartburn.
yeah.
All right, so my fourth guy. Here's my wild card. So this is like my Dennis Rodman type.
This is your wild card? Attila the Hun wasn't your wild
No,
card?
here's my next. Here's my next.
He came across him a couple times.
I'm setting up my new one. So this is a 19th century gunfighter, gambler, and storyteller. Okay. He was a lawman, but the legend of his name was bigger than the name itself. Okay. Wild Bill Hickok. Okay.
Okay.
Wild West, did a lot of things, was a sheriff, was a marshal, was a gunfighter, and he knows his way around a bar. If the setting is a bar fight, this guy's been in a bar or two. Okay. But he was well known for...
You said this bar is in Milwaukee, so it probably doesn't have the saloon doors. So can he even get in?
Ooh.
Does he know how to open a regular door?
Well,
Or is he just stuck outside trying to figure out the doorknob?
He just kicks it. Or he shoots the lock until it opens. One of the two.
That's right.
He's
I'm just
fine.
trying to poke
He had
holes
a
in everyone
6-shooter.
here, so your guy can't use regular doors.
Okay, whatever. Your Ronin is hiding in the shadows. We all get it, okay? He's waiting for his moment.
So after my 5 wins the bar fight, I need a guy to tell the tale. I need history to know what happened. And Wild Bill Hickok was a known story embellisher. And you got to be able to tell a good story. It's not so much about the fight, it's about the story from the fight.
You got to
Okay,
win
but
the fight
here's-
if you're going to tell the story.
I like Wild Bill. I think he's a great pick. But I think he lacks situational awareness because didn't he get killed in a bar playing cards with a dead man's hand? Didn't somebody shoot him while he was holding aces and eights?
You know what? He was a gambler. He
gambled,
rolled the dice a little bit.
You know who got
sometimes he's a wild card.
You know who got
He's a
him?
wild card.
Ehud.
Who got him?
Just leaned over and said, got a message for you.
We got to keep Wild Bill alive so he can tell the story.
No, I get it. I'm just saying. You just might want to make sure John L. Sullivan is like on his back, just watching his 6, just to make sure nothing.
Exactly. He's gonna be sniping from the back anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Last but
I love
not
it.
least. Last but not least, I just Googled this guy. Never had heard of him, but I haven't seen the movie. Hugh Glass is the guy's name.
I had him on my
Does that ring a
list.
bell?
The Revenant.
Yes. So I don't know anything about the movie. Just Googled him, and I pulled up an image of this guy, and I'm gonna try to do this image justice. He's one of those guys that whether it's a black and white photo or a color photo, he would look the same. He just has that look in his eye, that crazy look in his eye. He was a mountain man, very comfortable in the outdoors, trapper, hunter, outdoorsman. And there's a great story. The great Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec once said, "It's never a bad idea to demonstrate to your buddies that you're capable of withstanding a tremendous amount of pain." Okay? So Hugh Glass is off in the woods with 6 other guys on an expedition. Okay? All of a sudden, a grizzly bear attacks him. Okay? Grizzly bear absolutely mauls him, breaks his leg, tears up his neck, exposes his ribs, all of these things. He manages to kill the bear in self-defense.
Jeez.
Okay?
Okay, but was
So-
it deemed self-defense by a court of law? We need to be
That's a
clear
good
about
point.
that.
This is Canadian court. There is no rules. Okay.
I think it was in South Dakota.
Even better.
But you're right.
Fewer rules.
I don't know what PETA
Yeah.
would have had to say about that. You
Yeah.
never know. Thank goodness it was the 18th century. So manages to kill the bear himself. His buddies say he's not going to survive this. We're too far away from, help. We can't just leave him out here. So 2 guys get selected to stay with him, right? So as they're staying with him, they don't try to save him because they know that he's going to die. They're digging his grave for him as he's alive, bleeding out. Finally, they get tired of him. They get tired of waiting for him to die. And the 2 remaining buddies say, we're leaving. We're just going to say that we were ambushed by Indians and the Hugh Glass died. So they go back. Okay. Hugh Glass skins the bear, uses it for warmth, regains consciousness, sets the bone in his leg, and had maggots eat the gangrene on his leg. He walked 200 miles to help over 6 weeks. Just foraged for food, stayed alive, and lived to tell the tale. I want that guy on my team.
That would be a good pick. Even if he's losing the fight, he's almost impossible to stop.
Exactly. You're not going to beat him.
Yeah, that's a good
You
one.
might get him down on the ground, but you're not going to beat him.
Okay.
So there's my 5.
I like it. That's a good 5. So clearly, Wild Bill is your Steph Curry, right? That's your sharpshooter.
Yeah, okay.
Who's your Rodman? Attila the Hun, or is that Sullivan?
Well, no, Shaq is Attila the Hun.
Okay.
Patton is my Magic Johnson.
Okay.
John L. Sullivan, he just...
Is that your Draymond?
Comfortable. He's what?
Like a Draymond?
No, he's comfortable in every situation. He's
Kobe.
unflappable.
Kobe.
Like who?
Kobe.
Kobe, yeah.
That's
John
a
L.
good one.
Sullivan's Kobe. Hugh Glass is like, who can I...
Birdman?
Just can't keep the Birdman down. I don't know, like a Moses Malone, something like that.
Okay.
An old tough guy.
Okay.
Never
like
can
it.
win. Just
Who is
keeps going.
who in The Last Dance? Who was the guy that they? It was against. He was playing against Jordan, and
Charles Oakley.
Charles Oakley.
Yeah.
He's a tough dude.
Every team needs a guy like that just can take the punishment.
Yeah.
Ron Swanson said it best.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Those are 2 good 5s. Really. All right. So I guess I'll hit you guys with mine. And so I based mine off of my actual 5. So the 5 guys that I had in my wedding and what their traits were. And then I tried to find a historical comparison to that. So my 5 guys are Josh, Tyler, Eric, Cameron, and John. So we're going to start with Josh. Okay. And those of you that know Josh, he is I kind of have him as my wild card / berserker. Because he is one time we had a little house party, and we had a couple of guys there that were getting kind of rowdy, and they were invited by somebody other than the people that we invited. And there's this one guy, and he was a bouncer at like the local bar, and he's like 6'5", 260, big dude, big strong dude. And as we were trying to get them out of the house, they shoved one of our roommates through the screen door and shattered the door. And so once that happened, Josh leapt through the door and just went and clocked the guy and then dropped him and then just went crazy outside. And so, yeah, it was unbelievable. It's one of the greatest things you've ever seen. So I wanted to find a historical comparison to that kind of guy. And there's another thing about Josh that you need to know is that, this is why it's going to matter for this guy. But the guy I picked was Marcus Cassius Sceva. And he was a centurion for Julius Caesar. He was a career soldier. And when he wasn't fighting in the war, he would frequently train with gladiators. He fought in the Gallic Wars for Caesar, and then he also fought in the war between Caesar and Gnaeus Pompey, and specifically at the Battle of, and I'm going to butcher this name, Dyrrhachium. And during that battle, on behalf of Caesar or for Caesar, he was shot in the eye with an arrow. And why this matters for Josh is because Josh, during work, gosh, it's 10 years ago or so now, got shot in the eye with a screw and has this severe eye injury. So the second I saw this, I'm like, this is Josh. This guy is the ancient Josh. And it said, in one of the articles I read, it said, despite having a pretty bad case of shot in the eye syndrome, Marcus yelled a battle cry, removed the arrow, and kept fighting and killing even more intensely. During the same battle, he was struck by 2 more arrows, and sources differ on where. And then while hundreds of arrows bristled from his shield, Marcus managed even under these circumstances to hold the line and keep fighting. Afterwards, he was promoted by Caesar, given triple pay and commendation. So that's definitely the kind of guy I want when things get a little hairy on my side. Because clearly, like you said with Hugh Glass, taking the damage from the bear, but he kept going. This guy is the same way. He was wounded and kept fighting. I know if I was shot with the arrow in the eye with an arrow, I would not do a battle cry and keep going at it. So that was my first one.
You searched far and wide for that arrow in the eye.
Here's the thing. I was just looking for I think I just wrote like really badass warriors or something like that, and that one popped up, and then the second I saw the shot in the eye, I'm like, that's Josh. That's my guy. So another one is my second one was Tyler, my buddy Tyler. And Tyler's kind of tall, wiry, really strong. He's kind of got that, he's not old. I mean, he's my age, but he's got that old man strength already sort of thing. Tough as nails, and was a very good wrestler in high school. So for this one, I picked Honest Abe. And a little known fact about Abraham Lincoln, obviously physically he's one of our taller presidents. He's about 6'4", but he was a renowned wrestler, and he's actually been inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. I don't know if that's like the WWE Wrestling Hall of Fame or if there's some other organization, but
have you ever seen Honest Abe's outfit? It's great.
Yeah, he was a showman.
The face paint and everything.
Yeah, coming off the top rope, and he only had one loss in 12 years. And in one particular scrap, he defeated a man with a single toss. And then he turned to the angry mob that had gathered to watch the fight and challenged the lot. And this is where he gets kind of Russell Crowe in Gladiator, goes, any of you want to try it? Come on and wet your horns. Like, okay.
He was wearing the hat, right?
Oh,
he was wearing
obviously,
the hat?
always wearing the hat.
Oh.
Yeah. Not surprising, but nobody tried him after that. So he also used his wrestling skills to defend others. His stepbrother's river barge was hijacked by groups of thugs. And when he was 19 years old, he saved the day by single-handedly throwing them all overboard. So, yeah, I saw Abe and it's funny because with presidents, like, there's a lot of good presidents that you can pick from fighters. There's Jackson and Washington, and obviously, and you already said with Teddy Roosevelt, Cameron. So, yeah, Honest Abe. He's not just one of the most popular presidents ever, but he's apparently one of the greatest wrestlers of all time.
See, this is a great thing about this podcast. I've learned something myself every time. I didn't know that Honest Abe was a fighter. I knew he was I think I was looking for him, I wrote Abraham Lincoln fights, and I'm because I think in his younger years he also owned a bar and was a bouncer when he was much younger, but then this whole thing came up about him being a wrestler. I'm well, this is awesome. So yeah, there you go.
Good old Abe. All right. I think I'm going to save this one for last. This one is Eric. I'm going to put you back to the back of the line. And
Will Chamberlain. Can't wait to hear it.
Oh, the
yeah,
afterthought.
you can't wait. Yeah. So I'm going to go to Cameron. Next. And Cameron, when I was looking for adjectives to describe you, I had boxer, great dancer, peacemaker. But I don't know if the guy I picked for you actually matches any of those three descriptors. So I went with Gerald Ford. And just work with me here. Gerald Ford played some college football. Obviously, Cameron, you played some college basketball. Although one could say Gerald Ford played at a bit higher level, winning champion.
Yeah, he played at Michigan, didn't he?
Yeah, he won a couple national championships for Michigan.
Almost the same thing.
Similar level. He became an assistant coach in 1935 at Yale, and that's where he got his law degree. He was at Yale. Cameron, you coached B-team basketball at a Lutheran middle school, so again, I felt like those were comparable.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Totally the same.
Especially working under the athletic director, Eric Hoffman, at that time. He also coached boxing at Yale, which is a sport he had no familiarity with, but I do know, Cameron, that you did do some boxing back in your younger years.
He's got like 7-foot reach. You got to use it.
Yeah.
Right?
Served in the Navy in World War II. Obviously, unless there's something you haven't told us about yourself, I don't think you've served.
I'm a good swimmer, so kind of Navy-ish.
Yeah. He's very handsome and athletic. I know you think you're both of those things, Cameron, so I thought I'd give you the nod on that. And here's the thing, and I know he kind of takes some heat. You know, Gerald Ford takes some heat for his presidency, but he's a very accomplished person, came from very humble roots, and everything he had, he worked for. Aside from him being a fantastic athlete, he just kind of had that humble upbringing, rising up to the presidency. And I know he gets a lot of flack for his presidency, not actually being elected and assuming over after Nixon resigned and stuff like that. But I do think he's the kind of he's just a good dude. And when you think in a bar fight, you just want to have one of those good dudes to have your back. Because, you want to have somebody balance out your berserker or your Attila the Hun.
Well, somebody's got to talk to the cops afterward and explain what happened.
Yeah, totally.
Attila can't talk to the cops. He's in no condition.
No. So I like that having, he was a good athlete. He was very tall. He's very strong. And he was kind of the guy that you would want to be friends with. And that's why I kind of had him be your correlation for Ford.
I'll take it. So
next up is my buddy John. And this one was probably the hardest one I had to pick. John's an all-around good athlete. He was also a very good wrestler, but he's also an instigator. And I think that's something that would get us into a lot of bar fights. But I went with Churchill. Winston Churchill. Churchill, especially when he was much younger, he fought on the side of the Spanish in the Cuban War of Independence in the 1890s. Got in some skirmishes in the Second Boer War. He actually became a POW, escaped from prison, stowed away on freight trains to make his escape to Portuguese West Africa. And he's just very resourceful, and he's always eager to kind of go in the fray, and that's definitely my buddy John. Kind of short. He's only 5'6", but he's also very athletic, and obviously he's most famous for his time as prime minister in World War II. But there's a lot that goes for his kind of firebrand political style was based on his early trials in his younger life. So I went with him, and then he also, Churchill, man, he was so good at getting under people's skins, and this is definitely John. He got into a debate with Nancy Astor, who is an actress who frequently got into arguments with Churchill. And Nancy Astor said to Churchill, she goes, If I were your wife, I would poison your coffee. To which Churchill promptly replied, and if I were your husband, I would drink it. So he just always had that way of like always getting in the last word and always like just getting under your skin. And that's definitely, John has a great way of doing that. And so even if John couldn't win the fight physically, he would definitely be in that guy's head. Yes, he'd be in the kitchen, rent-free. All right, last of my 5, and this one is Eric. And this one, Eric, you're not much of a hand-to-hand kind of guy. But I do think you would serve a vital...
From my experience in 0 fights, bar fights,
yeah,
you might be wrong, but probably not.
Okay. So here's where you would fit in with my group is I think you would be the guy that would start the bar fight. You would say something and get...
Okay, that's true.
And some guy would get all twisted up and frustrated at your words and your fancies talking and then lose it. And then to which the rest of us would have to jump in. And
fancy talking.
So...
You with your words?
Yeah.
Those
now we're in
college
Boston.
words.
Yeah. So who I picked for you was Martin Luther.
Ooh, nice.
Because you would, and here's why it matters. Because what did Martin Luther do? He posted 95 theses in 1517 at All Saints Church in Wittenberg. That started a little thing that we know as the Reformation, which also led to another little thing we know as the 30 Years' War, in which millions died.
I'm sorry.
And Luther was able to go hide at Wartburg Castle, protected by his friend Frederick the Wise, which would be me, because that's what would happen. And Luther had some quotes, and here's why it really kind of ties to you. He goes... His most famous quote is, I cannot and will not recant anything. For you to go against conscience is neither right nor safe. Here I stand, I can do no other, so help me God. Amen. Another quote he said is, peace if possible, truth at all costs. But that I cannot and will not recant, that would be us as you know, Jimmy Crack Corn is getting all frustrated with you and your fancy words. And be like, Eric, just apologize. Like, I can't. It's just the truth. I'm sorry, facts don't care about your feelings, sir.
That is spot on.
To which it would be on. So I think...
And I would be backing out and be like, gentlemen.
Oh, well, and then the second that guy gets aggressive and starts pushing, and she'll be like, whoa, hey, I'm just talking truth here. Why we gotta throw fists? Why we gotta drop elbows? So... I feel pretty confident that you would be the Martin Luther of our group, and I'm totally fine with it. So
that was a beautiful description. That was spot on.
What do you got to say, Eric?
I mean, yeah, I've done my share on Twitter. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think that pretty much hits it on the head.
Good. And I'm fine with it. I think it's perfect. So, because somebody's got to be there to start the fight, and that would definitely be you. And you'd be strong in your convictions from the back, while the rest of us leapt to the front.
Just yelling over the din of it all. Like, still not wrong.
And another thing.
And another thing.
So.
Oh, man. That was my favorite 5 right there. Very well defended, very well thought out too.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think all three of those 5s were really, really good though. Every one of them. I loved where you went with it, Eric, picking them from different eras.
I think I'm most happy that we had no overlap.
I know. I was shocked.
Well,
I thought for sure somebody
with the American money
would spill over.
It's more limited, right? Like. It's limited to Americans. Mm-hmm. We put some bigger constraints on it. This being wide open helped. Mm-hmm. So,
Jake, I was 1,000% sure that one of the people you're going to choose was Ray Nitschke. Every time you have a conversation about a tough guy, it's Ray Nitschke and Chuck Bednarik. And I've heard the stories.
Concrete Charlie.
You go into old man mode when you tell stories about those two.
Yeah.
I know that Chuck Bednarik would always, go pour concrete at his
Concrete
day job
Charlie,
after his
that's what he
NFL
did.
game.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was so ready for you to choose those two guys.
Well, and you know what? And I tried to stay. I did think about Nitschke. I'm like, no, I need to stay away from professional athletes and see if I can branch out a little bit more. I almost picked George Washington for one of mine before I kind of rethought how I wanted to format it. Because I could imagine George Washington himself was 6'2", very powerfully built, very strong, fearless in battle. Frequently had this. It's called like a cherry bounce. It's like a brandy that's soaked in cherries, and he would always have it with him in a canteen when he went out into the wilderness or when he went into battle and stuff. And apparently it's delicious. And he made it in Mount Vernon. He had a whole distillery there. And I could just imagine if a bars fight started, because of Washington, if he was in your 5, he'd be like, hold my dentures, takes out his false teeth, and just starts swinging because he's got that old man strength, from 40 years of fighting wars and stuff like that. So I was real close to picking Washington.
I just finished.
It's funny you say that. I came really close to choosing Washington also. Mm-hmm. Since we watched Hamilton and we talked about it on the podcast, I've gotten I've gotten really into Hamilton and the songs, and I play them all day, and I hear them in my headphones when I'm working out. They're so good. Mm-hmm. And I thought, every team needs that smooth talker like Washington, who everybody reveres, who's a great leader. I almost used him as my leader as opposed to George Patton. So, it's funny you say that, because, he was a great man in a lot of ways.
I just finished the Washington biography by the same guy that wrote the Alexander Hamilton biography. That was very fascinating, because Washington came from a family and kind of expected to die young because he constantly got sick. And he would be sick for like a month at a time. And I think twice during his presidency, they thought he was going to die. Like, they were like, we have a constitutional crisis here because this guy might die any minute. And he died. He was only 67 when he died. Might have been kind of old for that time, but still, he got sick, went out for a walk, got a cold, got pneumonia, and then just kind of went, But yeah, early in life, he was a tough man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and people forget he was very late in life leading the Continental Army. I mean, he was in his 50s at that time. Even he died at 67 in 1790.
He was in.
So, he was in his 60s at that time.
Well,
no, not in his 60s. He was in his 50s though.
67 when he died.
Did he die?
In
He died in 1790, right?
1799. He was president until 1797.
Okay.
So, or 1797. So he served 1790. Yeah, but he was in his late 40s during the war, early 50s. But he had done a lot of his fighting even before that during the French and Indian War, and as a kind of a plantation owner master, he was. And when I say brutal, I mean he was brutal to the people who were in charge. He wasn't, at least himself, brutal to his slaves. But man, if you weren't cutting it, he did not parse words with anybody. But he was also constantly in debt. He had to borrow money to go to his inauguration. So, yeah, he was always in debt, and his land.
Yeah.
It goes to that slavery did not enrich anybody, really. Really, people were constantly in debt. It was a terrible economic system. But it was one that people couldn't let go of, so.
Yeah. And it was funny with Washington. I mean, there's a couple presidents, like I said, but Washington was one. Jackson was another. Old Hickory. Mm-hmm. Teddy Roosevelt, obviously, is up there, but... Yeah, there was a few honorable mentions that I had that it was really hard for me to not put them in. And I'm sure that you guys had the same kind of issue. Here's one that I was surprised. It was nobody picked Leonidas.
I had...
That was one of my honorable mentions, too.
Was he?
When I was looking at the classical era, one of the things I kept going to, trying to look at, like, great Greek warriors. And it kept feeding me lists of, like, the heroes, like the demigods. And I'm like, I don't want Achilles. I don't want Hercules. I don't want them. I want to know who the great Greek warrior was. And I think the one that came to the top of the list always was Leonidas. But I think... well, basically any Spartan would be fantastic to have in a bar fight because they don't know how to control themselves outside of their groups, right? The famous stories are that when the Spartans traveled away from Sparta, they had no self-control because they had never seen so much freedom and all the things that come with not being in a constant disciplined environment. But I kind of wanted to. I tried to find other Greek warriors, but I just came up with a lot of some of the ones, Themistocles and Pericles and some of the great leaders, but people I couldn't really think about in a fight other than Leonidas, and I just kind of too easy for me. So,
yeah, I agree. So,
I think the cool thing about when obviously all of this is anecdotal and we're just talking about what if and we're talking about different eras and that kind of thing, but that's the fun thing is, you don't want to hear the stories that we've already known and heard and those kind of things. You want to hear the legends of, oh, let me tell you a story of how tough this guy was, because you can't, it's not a typical, he weighed this much, he was this tall or whatever. It's cool to be able to tell the stories, the legends. And, with athletes, with great warriors, that's what we remember is the stories more than the numbers or anything else.
Yeah. All right, so I have one question for you guys. And you can, I guess, pick your own, but out of the 3 5s, whose do you think would win between all 3? So who had the best 5? And I'll go. Honestly, I love mine. I really do. But I think I would give the edge to Cameron's. I think you've just got some rough and tumble dudes that I would not want anyone to mess with.
Yeah, I think...
I like my lineup.
I think Cameron gets it. Musashi's going to be kind of pointless in a bar fight unless he can get a good pair of, like, chef's blades. And, Flama will be good in the fight. But again, he's trained with weapons. Ehud, I'm giving it to him. He gets to bring in the sword on his thigh. But he's going to get one shot, and then it's over. Tankman...
He's just standing there.
He's just standing there.
He stands in front of Attila the Hun. Attila the Hun's going to wreck him.
Yeah.
It's not...
Yeah, Attila's going to have no qualms about just punching the unarmed guy. Yeah. And Teddy Roosevelt will come to the fight, with his fists. But I think Cameron's kind of got the edge in the bar fight.
Yeah.
Man, this would be fun to watch.
It would be. Can we, this is me asking you to do more work, Eric, but could you get any of these photos or images to pop up when we're presenting them?
I can try. I'll have to push this back a few days.
That's fine.
Yeah, I would like to. I do want to put these photos in there. So, if you got some, throw them in there for me, and I'll.
Will do.
I mean, I can look them up too. But.
All right. All right. Well, I think that wraps up this very special episode of Dad Bod History.
Very special.
Who's in your 5? So, thanks for joining us. I'm Jake.
I'm Eric.
I'm Cameron.
We'll see you all next time.
Like and subscribe. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks, guys.